freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 313 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by AZ Firearms Auctions, your nationwide premier gun auction, where you set the price on guns, accessories, and ammo. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is Revival of Young Voters, and our guest is Austin Smith. Austin is the National Field Director of Turning Point Action, the sister organization to Turning Point USA, and he is the chairman of the Young Republicans, Arizona Young Republicans. Austin grew up hunting and fishing, and firearms have been part of his life since he was born. He believes the Second Amendment is still the most consequential right that we have to fight for every day.
Welcome back to the show, Austin.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy being with you, and thank you guys as well for coming to our revival mixer of the AZYRs a couple weeks ago. I really appreciate that and having you guys there and Cheryl inspiring the troops.
That was fun. I was the oldest guy there.
Yeah, when it was like
you're still always welcome, Dan.
Arizona Young Republicans were like, that's, a little bit of a subjective term.
No,
so
it's good to see those bright faces just wanting to help serve the country,
Absolutely. So to hear the news, always in air quotes, the news tell it, the words young and Republican don't belong together. They're somehow, an oxymoron. So when you put together a mixer on a Friday night, right? And it's a political event for Republicans. How did you expect to have such a huge turnout?
Well, that's a great question. We were aiming for 50 people because it was our first event. And just to give you guys a kind of a history, the Arizona Young Republicans about a year ago were dechartered. The previous leadership was not fulfilling their national committee duties. And so I was reached out to by Rick Lockery, who's the national chairman, and asked if I would be willing to recharter the state federation. And I said, yeah, absolutely. After the 2020 election, I can do that. I just have too much on my plate now with Students for Trump. But once it's over, I'd be happy to do it. And so, we were expecting hopefully 50 people to show this because we barely had any rosters. This was all grassroots effort and support, call a friend, phone somebody, text somebody. And so after I appointed the rest of the executive committee and our county chairs, I said, hey, here's the deal. We don't have any activists within wires. We don't have any political apparatus. So we're going to have to do it right now. And this first showing is going to be a indicator on how well we're going to be able to recruit, train, and elect and get involved more other young Republicans. So we were hoping for 50, ended up having just over 100 people show up that we had signed up to come to the event. And 15 of them became precinct committeemen. And one of them registered to vote for the first time ever. Everybody else was pretty much registered to vote. So it was very successful. The energy and enthusiasm is there. And we're very excited to keep growing here in the state of Arizona with the YRs. And we're going to make sure that it's a part of the political apparatus in the state for a very long time.
That is fantastic. And they were genuinely young people. They weren't,
Yes. All between the ages of 18 and 40 showed up from different backgrounds, different persuasions, whether they were center right or further to the right or libertarian, or they may be leaning a little bit more left, but they have that exposure now to more conservative ideals and more young Republicans that they can network with. And then we're just planting a seed. We're making our events fun. We're making them energetic. We're going to have lots of calls to action to activate people to win elections next year in 2022. And we're going to make sure that the YRs play a big part of that.
That is phenomenal. And I know that I talked to one young couple that I think they drove 4 or 5 hours, something like that, to be there. So it was
Yeah, we
people
had
from
some come from Flagstaff. We had some drive up from Tucson. We had some make their way almost from California in the Parker area. So we were very excited to have that big of a turnout on a Friday night.
It was incredible. I think that kind of energy is really indicative of the reality of, of the citizenry of Arizona. But I think we've just all become a little too complacent, a little too
Hmm.
comfortable with, well, somebody will do it, right? Somebody's got this. And then after this whole crazy election we've been through, a lot of us are realizing, oh, wait, no, maybe that somebody is the person I'm looking at in the mirror, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I think 2020 did for a lot of people was wake them up and say, it's if not me, then who? Flag waving rallies don't register voters. Flag waving rallies don't knock doors. They don't drop literature. They don't sign up precinct committeemen. They're a lot of fun. And I was very critical of those type of events. Yeah, that's good to get people out and show their support, but you've got to channel that type of energy. You've got to do something with it, because if you're not going to do it, the left is, and they've been very effective at it. And you start to lose elections. And so it's not, running away saying they stole the election or I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. You have to make the difference. If you do that, that's nobody's fault but yours. You have to be the one that's willing to stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to work with my state legislature to fix these election problems. I'm going to work with my local, my county, my state party, something that I can do just to turn the ship a little bit and move the needle. Because if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, and it may not be the best person. And it's specifically these more left-leaning socialist commies that are now trying to take over our country. And you can't just sit there and sit back. Well, this is what I heard on Fox News. No, channel that energy, do something about it. Whether you're a YR or a not so young YR, but you're young at heart, now's the time to channel that energy.
Boy, that is exactly right. And, one of my questions on here is, about, getting involved and what specifically does that mean? And you named several things. Like, so let's just take a precinct committee person. Oh my gosh, that sounds like, whew, really intimidating. How could that possibly be me?
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is a a precinct committee person? What do they do?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Cheryl, because this is what we're doing, through Turning Point Action and the Arizona YRs. And so what a precinct committeeman is, you are the local leader, official leader of the Republican Party in your neighborhood. That's what a precinct is. When you go to vote, you go to your precinct area to go to vote, whether that's at the church, whether that's at the school, the courthouse, a gymnasium, a community center. That is what your precinct is. And so the importance of a precinct committeeman is that when you're when you're an elected precinct committeeman, you vote on local leaders. So you're a county Republican Party chairman. You vote for your state committeeman to represent you at the state party. You're the very grassroots level that your state representatives and your congressional representatives have to answer to the most, because you are the elected or appointed leader in your neighborhood. And so a lot of people get very frustrated and upset. Well, I've reached out to my congressman, I've reached out to my state senator so many times and they never respond back. I was like, yeah, they're probably pretty busy, but if you're a precinct committeeman and you reach out because you're an elected from that area and they answer to you, you're more than likely going to get them to come to your house, or you're going to have a phone call or a meeting with them. That's how important those positions are. And so a lot of people don't understand that when there's a contested election in a certain precinct or a certain legislative district, the county needs people elected from those precincts to go and represent that legislative district or that area to verify those election results, to contest those election results. And so obviously through 2020, a lot of people were very upset and questioned how the elections were run. Well, there were missing volunteers to verify these election results. They're missing people that actually are elected or appointed to those positions to go there to work with the county, to work with the county chairs, to work with the county recorder, to go on behalf of the legislative district from your precinct to hearings about the elections. And so a lot of people don't understand that, like, well, it's a lot of work. No, it's really not. You really only have, one meeting a month a year. You're not required to go to any of these meetings. You should go to these meetings to stay aware of what's going on at your school district, what's going down at the state legislature. And so the precinct committeeman, being the most smallest and grassroots office, is the most powerful office holder, because everyone above you that's elected answers to you. You go and you're going to be the ones that are telling them they're doing a good job or they're doing a bad job. Now, constituents can do that too, but precinct committeemen, as an elected or an appointed one, really hold their feet to the fire, because they have to answer to you and you alone.
And how do you become a precinct committee person?
Precinct committeemen. So it's different across the state. So we'll take Arizona, for example. In the primary of August of 2022 is when there'll be elections for precinct committeemen. But in the meantime, you can get appointed to become a precinct committeeman. And so in Arizona, we have slots all over the state. But if you're listening from Arizona right now or across the country, I encourage you to go to tpaction.com/PC. We have people on staff right now that will help you walk through the process in your state or your county of being appointed to that position. We have a plethora of knowledge and information on why that's important. Right now, all of them are going to be appointed. Some states may not be called a precinct committeeman. They may be called a precinct chair. They may be called a precinct delegate. I know if you're listening from Wisconsin, you don't actually have elected or appointed PCs. You just pay a due towards the party to vote on things. But for the vast majority of all the states across the country, Turning Point Action, we'd be happy to help you get appointed to these positions and get you lined up to run for election in 2022.
Wow.
Is this, I mean, if I'm a busy young mom or a busy young dad, I've got a job, I've got, little league and soccer. Did you just ask me to take on another full-time job?
No, it's not. It's only going to be what you make out of it. These positions are very important because they depend on the future of the country and they show a future part of the country. And I think it's kind of almost selfish. I can't give up an hour on my Saturday just to knock doors. Like, well, the future of the country is depending on it. And, that may be brass, but that's the honest truth. Give you a perfect example. Last year with Students for Trump, when we were across the country going to our Super Saturday rallies, we would call the county parties. We would ask for, a list of their precinct committeemen in this district or that legislative district and call them and say, hey, you're an elected PC or we have you on this volunteer list. We'd love to have you out there. We're going to be doing an event to knock doors and get people energized and registered to vote. Would you be willing to do that? I really don't think I can give an hour away this Saturday. I'm just kind of too busy or I'm not too interested in it. It's like, well, look where we're at now. Now look at the situation, and because people don't feel that they can do that. And I get that. It's a lot of work. It's hard to get people to donate an hour a Saturday every month or every other month or maybe a couple times a year. But it's not a full-time job. You're only going to get what you put into it. And I think it's important to have people in those positions that do care. But I also think it's important for you to kind of step out of your comfort zone, because a lot of people get upset and they see stuff on social media. They see when they watch Fox News or Newsmax and they're like, what do we do about this? Well, this is the next step. You've got to be a precinct committeeman. You've got to be involved so locally that you know what's going on in your neighborhood. We may have influence in Washington, D.C. or down at your state capitol, but you're only going to change the country from your neighborhood and your precinct. This is where it starts. This is what everybody can do. And so I would say it's not a full-time job. You're going to get what you put into it. And, you're not going to regret it. There's going to be people that you probably disagree with, but you're literally setting a path for the future of your country while doing this.
Well, and especially when you realize that if you are a young parent, that those eyes, your children's eyes, are on you. They are watching what you do and how you do it. And that is going to change the entire trajectory of your family tree, right? By getting involved if you've never been involved before. And by doing that, you're going to change the trajectory of the nation and actually have a say in it. You'll be able to look back in a decade and go, I helped. And even if it didn't go the way you really hoped, you could still say, I tried, right?
Absolutely. And I'll close it with this on this topic is take your kids to these political events. Go to a rally down at the Capitol, register some voters or wherever else it's at. Take them when you go door knocking, when you're dropping off literature. Take them to your legislative district meeting. Expose them to that kind of stuff. This is what we're lacking because parents, we're blaming the school system, but there's plenty of other things you could be doing outside of the school system to expose your kids to things like this. I know it's busy. You're a busy parent and there's a lot going on, but there's nothing. I mean, we're Republicans. We believe in growing, and conservatives, we believe in growing our families and having that generational love for our country. It starts with mom and dad at home. Take your kids to those rallies. I started with my first one in 2015 when I went to a Tea Party rally with my parents. Changed my life forever. And it may change your kids' life. They may end up hating it, but at least they know what's going on, that you expose them to that. And it's just important.
Well, we took our daughter to the last meeting and she signed up.
She did. She did.
So there you go.
She did. We were very happy with Cassie. We appreciate her doing that.
Yeah. She's a little older than 15. She's 32. Sorry, Cassie.
But she's-
Anytime to start. Anytime to start.
But wait, she's got kids.
She does. She has
And when
two
they get to
littles.
the age,
Mhm.
and our grandbaby loves going to political
Yeah.
events with Cheryl. So,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that's how you do it.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So what do you think? I mean, we've talked about time as being a barrier. You're saying an hour on a Saturday every month. That's too much to ask. And I get it. It's easy to say that, but then if we could rewind the clock and go, well, man, if I would have put in those hours, would we have seen a different result standing here today? Maybe we'd make different decisions. But other than time, like what are the greatest barriers to people standing up for their values and their ideals? And do you think that young people, specifically young people, have any specific obstacles to being active in the civic part of their
Hmm.
life?
I think it's the other barrier is the repercussions. Some
Mm,
people that want to punish you, you may, lose fear, having the fear of losing your job because you do have a family and you do have to provide for them. And that's obviously your number one priority. And people feel like, if they're exposed as being an elected Republican from that area, that they could be canceled, they could be shunned, they may lose some other friends, they may lose their job. And at the end of the day, if it's really hard to fire somebody based on political beliefs, even though it does happen, it's very fightable. It's very fightable in court. But at the same time, don't be afraid. I mean, the barriers are only things that you let become barriers. If you're really passionate about the country, you're going to do whatever you can to save it. You're going to go around. You're going to find different ways. But don't work for companies that don't embrace your values. Don't associate with people that despise you for what you believe in or what you care for. Those aren't people that you should be associating with. I mean, we have a country to save, folks, and it's only going to be because you put your values and your family ahead of other people's opinions. I mean, that's really the reality of it. And if you're going to sit there and whine and complain, actually, I'm too scared to do this. I was like, well, maybe it's not the right position for you, but are you more scared of being exposed or are you more scared of living in a communist country?
oh,
Which one
wow.
Right.
is it?
Right.
And so I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to make that decision. And hopefully one day when you're sitting on your deathbed, I wish I would have done more. I wish I
Mhm.
wouldn't have let my kids be exposed to this type of thing in our country. I wish I would have had a little bit more backbone and said, you know what? I love my job, but I love my country even more. I love watching the NFL. Like I'm not watching the NFL anymore. I'm not watching professional baseball. I'm done. If you hate my values and my family and what we stand for, I'm not going to give you any money. Why am I giving my time and my resources to you? Why am I giving my labor to this company if I'm afraid of being fired for being a conservative? I'm sorry. I may be different about that, but I think that should be a lot of people's mentality if we're going to save this country, because the left is very adamant about shoving everything that they like down your throats, whether you like it or not. So you're going to have to take a stand now and hopefully not 20 years from now when we're the USSI.
Right.
Yes.
But
Oh,
and it's
man.
not just about knocking on people's doors, but it's also about when you go to a grocery store, when you talk to people at work, all these other things that help with this, right?
Absolutely. And it's just exposing people to different things. I mean, if you're already a precinct committeeman, one thing that I always try to tell people, or if you just, maybe you're not a precinct committeeman and you're just a staunch patriot and you want to get people involved. If you see somebody maybe wearing some patriotic clothing or a sticker on their car at the grocery store, approach them safely and responsibly and be like, hey, I noticed your sticker. I love the NRA too. I'm recruiting people to be precinct committeemen. Are you registered to vote? There's a big city council recall race happening. We really need your help and your support. Take your literature with you. Activism is every single day. Every opportunity you should get, you should do something. Don't be afraid. Love your country. Love your values. Expose them to other people. Only the person who's going to be able to do it is you.
Well, that's the truth. Who doesn't like to be in the know, right? And you would not be any more in the know you couldn't be than if you were a precinct committee person,
Mm-hmm.
because you would and actually you wouldn't just be getting the spin from the news. You would actually know what is
Mm-hmm.
happening right there close to home. You would be the go-to person for all your friends and neighbors. It's kind of like
Yep.
us being in the gun business. Over this past year, we have been the most popular people and on the planet, because people that never before realized that that was something that they would even
Mm-hmm.
consider purchasing. Well, now they need a trusted source of information, and so they knew that we were the ones to go to. So it'd be the same being a precinct committeeman, because you would be a trusted source of what is really going on. Is a recall, for example, is this the real deal, or is this just some kind of clickbait headline going on, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you brought up a really good point, is that you're being the expert or the in the know person or the go-to person. That's exactly what it is. You're going to get not tons of emails, but you're going to get emails and information from your county chair and your local chair about what's going on in a certain area, an event that may be happening. You may be upset with what's going on with your school board. Precinct committeemen are the ones on the front line doing this. We have a saying at Turning Point Action in the Arizona YRs that the PCs are the actual electeds of our Republican Party, that we're the actual ones doing the work. We're the actual ones that are getting people across the finish line. It's not the consultants or the campaign managers. It's the precinct committeemen holding the line in their neighborhoods and their school districts. And a lot of people are upset with the way school boards look like nowadays in school districts. Perfect example here in Arizona, Litchfield Elementary School District. That was my school district.
Yes.
And to see some of that stuff come across of like critical race theory, I hope all precinct committeemen in that Litchfield area go and raise hell about it, because this is not acceptable. This is not okay. And because precinct committeemen are usually the first one to find out about this stuff. And they're usually the first ones to decipher whether information is real or fake. And like you said, just kind of clickbait. And being a precinct committeeman, you're that person. And what a great way to be influential with your friends and family, is being that person that can share them that information and they trust you. That's a great responsibility, but what an incredible opportunity to just be that on the front lines with the future of the country and your state.
Wow, that's exactly right. I couldn't have said that better. So my final question, it's about a movie. You probably haven't seen this movie, but a lot of the young parents out there have it memorized. I guarantee you. Frozen 2. Have you seen Frozen 2?
Yeah, maybe bits and pieces, but just
okay. I think I have it memorized from start to finish because I have 2 young granddaughters and I have had them a lot over this past year. But there is one of the characters sings a song about just doing the next right thing. She finds herself in a really impossible situation, doesn't know what to do about it, and sings that song about just doing the next right thing. And I feel like that is just applicable to what we're talking about here, because nobody can do everything. Nobody can wear every single hat of, well, I'm going to run for the school board and be a precinct committee person and run for city council. And, we can't do it all. And then we think because we can't do it all, we get locked up and we do nothing. So what could you do to encourage people, to just take one new step? Just do one next right thing. What could you offer them?
I believe everybody has unique talents and what they can bring to the table and what they can apply to their community. It may be being a precinct committeeman. It may be being on the school board. It may be the PTA board. It may be serving on maybe one of your alumni in the area of where your kids go to school, just to give a little bit of time. Everybody, I know it's a very fading and fast thing, so that's the point. It's very fading and it's very fast. So do something about it. Volunteer a little bit. Meet your local Republican Party leaders. Meet your school board leaders. Go to your school board meetings, folks. Go to your school board meetings. That's where the future of the country is really going to depend on. Pay attention to what your kids are learning in school when they bring home their homework. Question that type of stuff. Go to the school board meetings, go to the PTA meetings, watch what your kids are watching on TV and their television, be involved very locally. That's where the biggest difference is going to be made. Water board, dog catcher, whatever it may be, pay attention to that kind of stuff. Call your local Republican Party leader and say, hey, what can I do? I've never done this stuff before. I'll be honest with you, that's really hard to do, because most people who are involved locally in the Republican Party area across the country don't do anything. And that's why we lose these elections. But you could be that person. You could be that person that turns that ship around. And if it's not going to be you, then who? And so I would just leave this. If you guys don't get involved now, 20 years from now, you don't want to be saying you regret it, because the left is actively marching against our rights all the time. They're shoving it down your face through pop culture. They're shoving it through politics. They're shoving it through your schools. They're shoving it through your neighborhoods. If you're sick and tired of it, don't just sit there and sit back. Become a precinct committeeman. Go to tpaction.com/PC. We'll get you involved. We'll help you. We're looking, we partner with another organization called Run Gen Z, where young people, we recruit them to run for local offices across the country, city council, school board, town council, the state legislature. We're looking for this new revival of people. And you may be young, or you may be young at heart. We want you to work with us. We want to work with you. We want to help save the country. We're trying to build this massive army, and it's growing, but it's only going to start if me and you join up together and do it. And so you got to start doing it in your neighborhood first.
Austin, I agree with you. I mean, I'm older. We know that. Yeah.
Maybe?
And I regret. My dad was a very strong fighting for our rights for guns. He was fighting every day. When he wasn't driving a truck, he was working, printing press, doing all kinds of things to save our Second Amendment. And I kind of I helped him a couple times, but I really sat the back seat of it. And it wasn't until, maybe 10 years ago or so, we started seeing that if everybody would have done something back then,
Yeah.
we would not be in the condition we're in right now.
Right.
If everybody do their part.
Right.
And it's hard, but it's rewarding. The reward
Yeah.
is that we have a country that was designed for us to live free.
Mhm.
So I regret that I didn't do that. And all I can do now is just try to catch up.
Right.
But
and encourage others
right,
like we're
encourage
doing
others.
today
Right,
to
right.
say,
Correct.
whatever I'm talking to everybody listening and watching, whatever you do or don't do in your lifetime, it will have reverberating effects into the future. So wouldn't it be better to at least try, at least do something?
Right.
And I'm so thankful, Austin, that you're in here. You're cheerleading, but you're more like a coach, like get off your butt, get in the game, get your head in the game. And I think we need to hear more of that, especially from someone as young as you are, because sometimes it does seem like, oh, that's something that people in their 50s or 60s get involved in, and I'll eventually get there. But no, it's got to start now, and it's got to start with your generation. So
I heard an article a couple days ago. It takes 15 years to change things.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
they were putting that in our kids 15, 20 years
so
ago.
easy. Yeah.
And it's we have to do it now. But I have to say the 100 people that were at your event gave me a lot of encouragement,
Mhm.
because those 100 people see 500 people, and then those people see more people. And it does give me hope that we're in the right direction. So
Yeah.
as long as we do it.
Correct.
Well, we need to
We have to
wrap.
amplify it every day.
Absolutely. Because I know you need to get moving, but I want, before you tell folks how they can follow you, why the word revival? Do we feel like we've kind of fallen into a doldrum and we need to be woken up and revived? Where does the word revival come from?
That's 100% what it comes from. My grandfather was a pastor, and my dad serves on the board of directors. So I grew up in a house where I heard the word revival a lot. And revival means, we're bringing people together. We're starting something new. We're trying to save people. We're trying to have a great awakening. And that's what we're aiming to do with the AZYRs. Is we're trying to have a revival here in the state of Arizona. We used to be this dark red state, but now we're purplish. Now we're leaning blue. And I was thinking, is like, you know what? That's not the way that we need to be going. We need to revive people. We need to have a revival. This is bad. And so the only way we're going to save it is if we revive people, just like as the church would revive people. So that's where we're going. That's the type of mentality that we're going to have a year of revival in 2021 for the YRs. That way in 22, we make some big impacts.
I
Awesome.
love it. All right. Well, how do people find you, follow you, get involved, all of those things?
Good. You can go to on my Twitter, which is at AZ Austin Smith. My Instagram is the same, at AZ Austin Smith. You can follow the Arizona Young Republicans on Facebook. You just type it in, Arizona Young Republicans. It's got a yellow logo with our picture on it. Another great place to follow us is you can just go to tpaction.com and sign up there for a lot of updates, or go to arizonayoungrepublicans.com and sign up for updates there as well. And so we have a lot of stuff planned, and we're trying to save the country, and we need everybody to be a part of it.
Boy, that's the truth. And I hope that you will look to us and nudge me on a regular basis and say, hey, I've got something important to announce or talk about. And we will keep our audience very informed about what you guys are doing over there. So will you do that?
Absolutely. I really appreciate your guys' partnership, and we're going to have a lot more fun together trying to save the country. Save it. We are going to save the country and save the state of Arizona.
Yeah.
Yes. Amen to that. All right. Austin Smith, thank you so much.
Thanks, Austin.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. You too.
I just say energy when I think of his name.
Yeah.
And
He was one of our, at the rally, the Second Amendment rally, he was one of our speakers, and he had the crowd revived. So yes, you're right. I
Right.
sorry I
No, that's
interrupted
okay.
you.
The 100 people that were there really did give me hope.
At the revival, the
right.
Young Republican revival. Yes. Oh my gosh. And that I think was what I started my little talk about there was, if you watch the news, you would think that all young people, whatever the word young means, are just gobbling down blue pills, right? They say it's the red pill, the blue pill, gobbling down, socialism and communism, and that they're just 100% amazingly happy with this new administration. And when we saw 100 people, they had kids at home.
Yeah.
On a Friday night. They could have been out having, date night. They chose to get involved in what is going on politically because they understand that if we don't start right now, yesterday really,
Yeah.
that those little kids that they got babysitters for, they're not going to have the
Yeah.
America that our founders secured for us,
Yeah.
right?
We
That
work today,
inheritance.
we can party tomorrow.
That's right. What does Dave Ramsey say? Live like no one else today, or no, save like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow.
That's right.
So, all right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much to Austin Smith and all
Awesome,
that you
Austin.
do. I mean, he wears a ton of hats. So, if we can't wear just one little hat, what's going on with that,
Right.
right? And thank you so much to our amazing listeners, not just here in Arizona, but across the nation and across the world. And yes, we're talking about an event that happened in Arizona, but it impacts what happens in one state impacts every state. And what we do in one state can inspire people in other states. And so we appreciate that you uh, listened in and spent your time with us, because you could have said, oh, this is just about Arizona and I live in, Wyoming or something. So I'm not going to
Remember
listen.
what he said, that we were a red state, now we're kind of a purplish.
Yeah, true
And
story.
that's because, I guess the red blood is thick and the blue blood is thin, and it just kind of seeps in and it's seeping in, and it does affect other states.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's funny, babe.
you see some of the questions like Texas,
Mhm.
there shouldn't be a single gun law in Texas.
Mm.
That's everybody remembers Texas is the state where, oh, if you lived in Texas, you had 20 guns.
Mhm.
And now it's like they're trying to fight for, they got to fight for our rights. And it's slowly
Same thing here in
bleeding.
Arizona.
That blue blood is thin.
Dude, that's funny. All right. So thank you to our listeners. You could be anywhere doing anything. Your time is your most finite resource. And when you spend it with us, we notice, we value it, and we do thank you so much for that. And when you take these conversations around your dinner tables and your carpools and, with your friends out on the golf course or wherever you are at your kids' soccer practice, boy, that's everything. I mean,
Yes.
really, because now you're moving these conversations forward. The subject matter experts that we brought on our show, the stuff we talk about is amazing. It has enriched my life. I've learned a ton over the years that we've been doing this show. But, yippee, I learned something. If it wasn't for all of you listening and then sharing it with others, it would kind of die on the vine. So thank you for that. And to watch all of our shows in the video form, you can go to the Ops Lens smartphone app, Gun Streamer, which is very much like YouTube, and then of course YouTube. And then also, if you want to listen to the audio only version, you can go to our website, gunfreedomradio.com, click the on demand tab, and
Binge listens to your heart's content, darling. But I have something else I want to say. If you young people want to live free, there was a song not too long ago, back in the day, that says, freedom isn't free, it costs $1.05. Well, it doesn't.
It's a classic, isn't it?
It doesn't.
Classic?
Freedom isn't free, but if you want to live free, you've got to work.
It's true.
You've got to work to keep it free, because there's
true.
people every day wanting to take your freedom away from you.
Yeah.
And they disguise it. They make it look like, oh, it's going to be utopia. You don't have to work anymore. You don't have to. the government will supply you with everything. Just look back in history of those governments that did that and think about how people live. Yeah, you're free to stand in line for 4 hours
Mm.
to get a loaf of bread.
Mm.
You're free to wait for 8 hours to get your gas if you're a first half of the alphabet for the day.
Right.
You're free, but I want to be free to be free.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I've already quoted a Disney movie today, so I should probably, quit while I'm ahead.
You have to
but
sing it if you're going to quote that.
there's another Disney movie that I always think of when you talk about it looks like, candy. This whole socialism, communism thing looks like candy. It looks good. And then once you realize what it leads to and what it really is, it's too late. And then I think of the Pinocchio movie. Remember how he was enticed into Pleasure Island, I think it's called.
Yep, pleasure on.
And
Been there.
I mean, it was like, here's all the candy, here's all the popcorn, here's all the fun. You can, all
Turns you into an ass.
it did.
Turn him into an ass.
It did. And not only that, but it enslaved him, right?
Yes, right. They put him
Locked in a
yeah,
cage.
Yeah. But we keep quoting Disney, and I'm concerned about Disney itself.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that they're 100% for our freedom. So be careful about some of those things, but maybe they're exposing themselves
I've
in a way.
heard that they're instituting the critical race theory in to their training, their corporate training. And then that comes back to us again. If we are their consumer, then we need to let them know what we think.
Yeah.
Like, do we think that's great?
The only
Then,
thing
okay, write them a
critical-
letter. If you
the-
think that's not so great, write them a letter.
The only thing critical Disney needs to do is open their hours longer. It's the
How
only thing
about
critical. But
open,
they
period?
don't need to be in politics. But they're getting scared. They get scared into, if you don't do this, we're going to boycott you. Oh, please don't boycott us. We'll do that. And they are in California,
Mhm.
so that's not good for them. But
Right.
anyway,
And you can do
guys,
it without threatening
right.
boycott. You can, but you have to use your voice.
Right. Let them know.
And nobody else is going to speak for you accurately.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of people out there that are trying to speak for you inaccurately. So yeah, and I guess Disneyland is open now, but it's only for
It's
locals.
only for California people right now.
We're not bitter. We're not bitter,
Just-
but eventually it'll open for
It's not like in Disneyland where
we
you
mere
can wish upon a
Arizonans.
star. You need to do more than wish upon a star. You need to work
Nice.
to be free.
I like it.
All
That's
right.
a good one.
That's enough.
All right. Well, what are we going to do until next time, Dan?
We're going to pray for our nation.
What else are we going to do?
Is this a test?
Yes.
We're going to pray for our leaders.
Good. How about there's a few that maybe we don't particularly like?
Do we have to be constantly reminded of that?
Yes, because we should be praying.
We're going to pray for everyone,
even-
everybody, even the ones we don't like, especially ones that we don't like.
Good job. See, that wasn't so painful.
Yes, it was.
You need a mint now and a shower?
Yeah.
All
Tastes
right.
a little Pelosi in my mouth. right
Thank
now.
you
Yuck.
all. Stop. Thank you all so much. And until next time, be good to each other.
Bye-bye.
Great week and God bless.